In Victorian London, a whispered scandal could exile a family faster than any courtroom verdict, much like the Tun's merciless shunning of Beau Brummell after his infamous snub of the Prince Regent cut him from society's glittering core. One such ruinous blaze erupted at a masquerade ball in 1847, where Lavinia Grace Sinclair, defiant beauty in ivory silk, her dark hair pinned elegantly amid the chandelier glow, was trapped in a shadowed alcove, discovered, in a compromising pose with a stranger, her honor torched before the eyes of high society's vultures. Before we continue, if this story has already drawn you in, I invite you to support the channel by liking this video and subscribing. It allows these quiet Victorian tales to reach others who value depth and timeless storytelling. And if you're willing, do leave a comment telling us where you're listening from. It is always a pleasure to see how far these stories travel. Lavinia Sinclair stood in the opulent ballroom of Foxworth Hall on her wedding night, the marble floors echoing like a tomb under crystal chandeliers that dripped golden light. Her gown clung like a second skin, pale and flowing, as she gazed pensively toward the arched windows framing a stormy dusk, while behind her loomed Everett Nathaniel Vane, Duke of Foxworth, tall, dark-haired, his military uniform severe with crossed arms and a sash of crimson, exuding the icy command of a man armored in logic. They called him the Duke of Stone, a reclusive titan whispered to possess a heart impervious to passion, his reputation scarred not by battle but by relentless public controversies over ruthless business dealings and rumored affairs that no woman could tame. He had proposed not from desire, but calculation, her family's debts erased, her scandal buried, in exchange for a marriage of ironclad convenience, no intimacy, no illusions. Society pitied him as broken by his own scandals, much as they once mocked disabled war heroes like Henry Paget, Earl of Uxbridge, who rose from Waterloo's cannon fire to command nations with prosthetic leg and unyielding will. Everett let the gossips feast, the Duke who retreated to his gilded estate, issuing edicts from shadows, untouched by the heat of London's viperous tongues. They patted his metaphorical shoulder, spoke of his inevitable solitude, blind to the predator sharpening his ledger of slights. Lavinia, sold like chattel to save her lineage, expected a jailer in Duke's clothing, a cold transaction to end her social death, echoing the era's lethal hypocrisies where a lady's virtue was currency and a noble's control was armor. In the suffocating grandeur of that first night, as Lavinia turned from the window, her profile sharp with unresolved fire, Everett met her defiant gaze across the room's expanse. He had married to douse the flames of her ruin and his own prying enemies, convinced his self-mastery absolute. But in her unyielding eyes, he glimpsed not submission, but a spark that pierced his frost. The man who wielded scandal as a chess move realized he hadn't silenced the blaze, he had ignited one within. For the first time, the Duke who never bent, felt the first crack in his stone. The masquerade ball at Almack's swirled in a haze of silk and deceit, chandeliers casting fractured light across masked faces hungry for ruin. Lavinia Grace Sinclair, her ivory gown shimmering like moonlight on the Thames, slipped away from the crush, lured by a note promising answers to her family's spiraling debts. The library, midnight, it read, the script elegant yet venomous. She entered the shadowed room, the air thick with leather and secrets, her heart pounding against the cage of her corset. A figure loomed in the gloom, tall, cloaked in black, his domino mask revealing only a firm jaw. Before she could speak, hands seized her, pressing her against the shelves as the door flew open. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Miss Sinclair," a voice crowed, sharp as shattered crystal. Lady Harwood's fan fluttered like a vulture's wing. Lavinia shoved back, but the damage burned her, compromised with a stranger. The man unmasked, Everett Nathaniel Vane, Duke of Foxworth, his dark eyes unreadable as slate. Whispers erupted like gunfire. Scandal. Ruined. Her family's name, already teetering, crumbled to ash. She met his gaze, defiant even as the Tun closed in, their laughter a noose. He hadn't spoken, hadn't resisted, yet his silence sealed her fate. The trap snapped shut. The Sinclair townhouse reeked of damp plaster and desperation, its once proud walls weeping as creditors hammered at the door. Lavinia stood rigid in the parlor, her father's hands trembling over a brandy glass, when the butler announced him. Everett Nathaniel Vane, Duke of Foxworth, strode in like winter itself, tailcoat severe, ice colder than the frost on the windows. No bow, no warmth. He placed a document on the table, its wax seal gleaming like a shackle. £40,000, he said, voice clipped as a blade. Your debts erased. Your brother spared prison. The townhouse saved. In exchange, you marry me. Tomorrow. Lavinia's breath caught. No poetry, no pretense of affection, just a ledger's calculus. Her father nodded, mute with shame. Play the grateful wife, Everett continued, gaze sliding past her like she was furniture. Smile for the ton. Bury the scandal. No more. She wanted to hurl the contract into the fire, but saw her mother's frail form in the corner, her brother's shadow on the continent. Pride warred with survival. And if I refuse, she whispered. His lip curled, faint but lethal. Then the Sinclairs vanish. Your choice. She signed, ink bitter as gall. The Duke turned, leaving silence and a noose disguised as salvation. Foxworth Hall rose like a cathedral of ice, its marble corridors swallowing Lavinia's footsteps as servants whisked her trunks away. The wedding, a grim blur of vows and veiled stares, had ended hours ago, yet no celebration followed. Everett awaited her in the grand drawing-room, firelight gilding his severe frame as he stood by the mantel, a glass of untouched claret in hand. Rules, he declared, not looking up from the ledger in his lap. No intimacy. No interference in my affairs. No emotion. You have your wing, your allowance. Play the Duchess in public, and we shall endure. His voice was law, unyielding as the estate's granite facade. Lavinia's gown felt like chains, the opulence suffocating, gilded mirrors reflecting a stranger's life. She nodded, chin high, though her pulse thundered. As you command, Your Grace. A flicker crossed his face, disdain? Curiosity, gone in an instant. He gestured to a footman. Your rooms. She ascended the grand stair, the gilded cage closing behind her, walls whispering of isolation. Outside, rain lashed the windows, mirroring the chill in her new husband's heart. Here, luxury was her prison, and Everett its unfeeling warden. If this tale has stirred your curiosity, a simple like and subscription is most appreciated. And if you wish, share in the comments where you are listening from. Now, let us return to the story. The dining hall at Foxworth stretched endlessly, silver glinting under a vaulted ceiling as if the very air conspired for formality. Lavinia sat at the mahogany table's far end, Everett at the head, servants gliding like ghosts between courses. Silence reigned, broken only by the clink of crystal. Turtle soup steamed untouched before her, he carved his pheasant with surgical precision. The ton expects a united front, he said finally, eyes on his plate. Feign contentment. And if I cannot? Lavinia replied, voice honey over steel. Shall I simper while they sharpen their claws? His fork paused. You will do as required. She leaned forward, candlelight catching her defiance. Required? Like a mare at auction? Or shall I recite your ledger, debts paid, scandal shelved, wife muzzled? Everett's gaze snapped to hers, sharp as flint. For a heartbeat, surprise cracked his frost, wit, not weakness. You presume much, he murmured, but the edge softened, intrigued. She held his stare, pulse racing. The room's opulence pressed in, but for the first time, the distance between them sparked. He resumed eating, yet his mind lingered on her fire. Not the fragile girl he'd bought. Something far more dangerous. The Royal Opera House pulsed with velvet and venom, gaslights flickering on jewels and judgmental stares. Lavinia glided beside Everett through the crush, her emerald silk whispering against his arm, public unity, private ice. Whispers slithered, scandal bride. Det Duchess. Lady Harwood's fan snapped open, her smile ablaze. Duchess, such haste to wed. One wonders at the necessity. Tittering followed like rats. Lavinia's hand tightened on Everett's sleeve, but her voice flowed smooth as champagne. Necessity? Merely efficiency, Lady Harwood. Unlike some, I prefer solutions to gossip. Gasps rippled, Harwood flushed crimson. Everett's fingers flexed under hers, shock. Restraint? He said nothing, but watched as she navigated the vipers with poise sharper than their barbs. In their box, as Verdi swelled, he studied her profile, cheeks flushed, eyes alight. Not crumbling under scorn, but wielding it like a fan. Admiration stirred, unbidden, warmth against his habitual frost. Well struck, he murmured during intermission, voice low. She met his gaze, surprised. Survival, Your Grace. The curtain rose again, but the true performance played between them, his walls, her grace, the first thread of intrigue weaving through the chill. Dawn filtered through Foxworth's library, illuminating ledgers strewn like battle plans. Lavinia pored over a scandal sheet clipping, the masquerade, discovery, too neatly staged. This note luring me, the timing. Everett loomed opposite, his ledger open to names scratched in ink. Not coincidence, he said flatly. Someone from my past, Lord Ashford, perhaps. He lost a fortune to my maneuvers. This reeks of him. Proof lay in a hidden drawer, Ashford's seal on forged debt notes mirroring her family's ruin. He trapped me to force your hand, Lavinia realized, pulse quickening. Strike at you through me. Everett's jaw tightened. We hunt evidence. Together. Days blurred into nights of shared searches, his study, cramped with maps and letters, their shoulders brushing over documents. Proximity bred tension, her scent of lavender clashing with his cedar cologne, glances lingering amid whispers. In a candlelit alcove, their hands met on a damning letter. He'd fled, he pulled back, but slower than before. Careless, he muttered, voice rough. She smirked. Or inevitable. Ashford's web tightened, but so did their alliance, physical nearness melting emotional frost, enemies forging reluctant comrades. Thunder rattled Foxworth's towers as Everett staggered from his study, face ashen, a riding crop clattering from his grip. He'd fallen hunting Ashford's trail, horse through him, ankle twisted, fever raging from the gash. Servants buzzed, but Lavinia waved them off. I'll tend him. In his chamber, fire roaring, she bathed his brow, her touch firm amid his delirium. Stay back, he growled, thrashing. I am no invalid. Hush, Duke, she soothed, peeling sodden linen from his wound. Beneath the stone facade, vulnerability cracked open, muttered confessions of a lonely youth, a mother's abandonment forging his armor. His dark eyes, fever bright, met hers without the usual wall. You see too much, he whispered as she spooned broth past cracked lips. Her hand lingered on his stubbled jaw. Only what you hide. By nightfall, fever broke, he gripped her fingers, weak but real. Lavinia. Her name, soft as prayer. She saw the man, not the title, raw, reachable. He pulled her closer, breath mingling, the ice thawing into tentative warmth. Outside, storm raged, but within, a fragile bridge formed. Ashford's summons arrived like poison ink, a gala invitation laced with threat. Reveal the sham marriage, or watch your empire burn. In Foxworth's shadowed solar, Lavinia clutched the note, heart pounding. He'll expose us, debts, convenience, all. Everett paced, ledger slammed shut. No more pretense. His voice cracked, not calculation, but conviction. I want you. Real. No contract. She froze, his words piercing her pride. You wed me for silence. He closed the distance, hands framing her face, eyes ablaze. I wed to end a scandal. Now, you're my heart. Proximity burned, she leaned in, lips brushing his in surrender. But Ashford loomed. He has proof, witnesses from the masquerade. Everett's resolve hardened. Then we end him first. Allies turned lovers plotted, forged letters, planted evidence to turn the gala into Ashford's trap. Tension coiled, not just strategy but desire, stolen kisses amid plans, his touch no longer forbidden. The villain prepared his strike, blind to the Duke's transformation. Everett no longer played chess, he fought for her, sham dissolving into truth. The grand gala at Harwood House glittered like a viper's nest, chandeliers dripping light on silks and schemes. Ashford cornered them amid the crush, smirk oily. A sham, your grace? Debt for a bride? The ton shall feast. Gasps swelled as he brandished a witness, a masked footman from the library. Lavinia paled, but Everett stepped forward, shedding his frost like a skin. Enough. His voice boomed, silencing the room. He dropped to one knee before her, not in proposal, but raw confession. I married Lavinia for convenience. To bury scandals, hers, mine. But she unearthed me. Eyes locked on hers, he continued, you are no transaction. You are my fire, my fall. I love you, first, fiercest. Tears pricked her eyes, the tongue gaped. Ashford blustered, but Everett rose, turning. Your witness? Mine. Your debts. Forged by my hand, exposed. Servants dragged Ashford away, his empire crumbling. Cheers erupted, but Everett pulled Lavinia close, whispering, no more cages. In stunning reversal, the Duke humbled himself publicly, proving he'd fallen hardest. Society's whispers turned to awe, their war won, not by stone, but surrender. If this story has captured your interest, please like the video and subscribe for more. And do tell me in the comments, where are you listening from today?